listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast, where we explore the connection between a fit body and positive mental health. And our big mission? It's to help 10,000 runners to develop fitter minds in the next 2 years. I'm your host, Michelle Frost. Let's get moving. Welcome to this episode of the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. Today we talk to Rob Donkersloot. Rob was a very successful businessman, but like many successful business people, he was quite unhealthy. So he was overweight and he smoked a lot and he just led a rather unhealthy life. He knew something had to give. And guess what? He started running. And then he found ultra trail running and he fell in love with that. And like so many people who are successful in areas of their life, he really took to it and has done all kinds of things in the ultra trail world. He's also gone and explored mindfulness and meditation and how they can benefit his running. And now he coaches other runners in how those things can help their running. Not only does it help their running, it also helps their life. This is a fascinating conversation that I am sure you will get a lot out of. So enjoy. Welcome to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast today. Rob Donkersloot, all the way from Western Australia. Hi, Rob.
Yeah. Hi, Michelle. How are you going?
Oh, awesome. It's so good to see you. I've already had a bit of a poke around on the internet and seen the cool stuff that you've been up to. So I'm excited to get into that and share you with everyone because I think you and I have got a bit of synergy and a lot of stuff in the way we're thinking about running and movement and mindfulness in a way, or that, you know, and the mind and how it can have a positive effect on our lives. So before we do that though, can you tell us where you grew up? So tell us a little bit about young Rob.
Okay, so young Rob, which is a very long time ago. I was born in Holland. Mm-hmm. And we migrated to Australia in 1968 when I was 8 years old. And we migrated to Tasmania. And I know you're from Launceston. So
you did not. I didn't know that. Actually, I did see on your Facebook that you'd been in Hobart, and I thought, oh, that's cool. Now I know one of the reasons why.
So it was fantastic to go back. And the reason to go back to Tassie was Sean Kessler, who's the operator of Ultra Series Australia, was putting on an event in Hobart, a backyard event. Mm-hmm. And they called the Devil's Lair, and it was supposed to be New Year's Eve or somewhere around there. Yeah. And Sean and I are really good mates, and we've been mates for forever, and you know, crewed for each other, and
that's why he dogged you into the podcast.
Yeah, probably. And when he announced the race, I had a look to see where it was, and I just thought, I wonder where he's putting it on. And it ended up that the original course where he had it was pretty well exactly a kilometre from where I used to live in Blackmans Bay. And I just thought, like, I've never been back, and I always wanted to go back.
Wow.
And I thought this is too good an opportunity, so booked it, and we went back and had 9 days staying at Kingston Beach, which is fantastic. Sort of 200 meters from the scout hall where I used to go, and it was just amazing. And then at the end of it, we did a bit of a trip around the island and all of the usual stuff, you know.
I saw you got up to Cradle
and Cradle and Launceston, and then over across to Freshenay, and so anyway, like it was a brilliant time. But
we could have done this in person. We didn't have to do it on
we
Zoom.
could have done. But going back to the question in regards to my early years. So 8 years old, living in Hobart, and my mum and dad built a house right on the Derwent River pretty well. It was like sort of 100 meters back.
Oh, beautiful.
And a little 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom place. And yeah, I went back there and had a look and sort of looked at the real estate values and sort of went, oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah.
And back then, it was a magic Tom Sawyer-like existence. I mean, like we lived in the river, even as 9 and 10-year-old kids, just go swimming or exploring. And there's all housing at the back of where we used to live now, but like there was a farm there with an orchard. And, you know, I guess used to go to school in Kingston, and I'd run through the bush to school, and yeah, so fantastic. But then my father got a job in WA driving trucks. So at the age of 11, so about 3 years later, we all packed up and moved to Perth.
Wow, that's about as far away as you can get.
Yeah, and totally different.
Totally different. You know, well, I grew up on King Island, and my brother won a trip when we were in primary school to anywhere in Australia. And my mum said, where can we go that's as far away as possible? And we went to Perth.
Oh, fantastic.
That was kind of funny. Anyway, so you're in Perth. So was it Perth, did you say? Like, was it West Australia? You went to Perth?
Yeah. Yep. And I guess that's where I sort of started to get into sports. Like I did surf club, and I was pretty good at that. Sort of beach running and swimming. And I was an okay sort of runner at high school. Do you mean? Like I was, like typically I'd win. Like favorite events 100 meters and 800. And inter-school sports had come along, and I'd typically either place or win those. So do you mean like that was okay? But we only ever did that for, I don't know,
that period,
2 months at a time or something. You know, when the athletic season was on in summer, and you'd do that, and then when it was finished, you'd go back to playing basketball or baseball or whatever.
And do you remember thinking they were looking forward to the running? Was that a thing that as a kid you went, oh, this is really fun, I enjoy this?
I used to, it wasn't the physical act of running that I enjoyed, but it was something that I was actually really quite good at. So I quite enjoyed that part of it. You know, I quite, and it was easy for me. Where the other sports weren't so easy, you know, like like my main sport when I was a kid was basketball. I got quite good at that as well. So and that really that was all of my running. I ended up going to secondary teachers college here in Perth for a little while, and studied phys ed. But after a little while, the education department and I decided that maybe it wasn't the best idea that I become a teacher.
That's funny.
So I went and did other stuff, and as happens with a lot of people well, certainly back then, when you're in your late teens, early 20s, it's about going out and partying. And,
I remember that.
And like I still played basketball socially, but didn't really run again for maybe 25 years later.
Oh wow, that is a long time. So what sort of work did you do in the meantime? Did you have a family? What happened with your life?
I had a family. I had a family, and I was working in advertising, in advertising agencies, and that was quite sort of stressful and a fast-paced sort of lifestyle. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen that show Bewitched, but that's what it was like,
Yeah.
Or Mad Men even. Do you mean like it?
Lots of long lunches and stuff done over, so not a healthy kind of lifestyle either. I picture, lots of stress, trying to get
clients I've also have a web development business in the past and
Yeah.
been an online marketer for a long time in some form or other. So I kind of understand it a little bit, but I haven't had that many long lunches.
So I got quite overweight by just overindulging, really.
Yeah.
Doing little exercise. I was smoking 30 cigarettes a day.
Oh, wow.
Drinking too much.
Mm-hmm. And talking about how you used to be really good at basketball.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how.
And my son, when he was 7 years old, he's 35 now. But he watched that movie, The Mighty Ducks. I don't know if you've seen it, but
I have, yes.
Yeah, yeah, and decided upon watching that film that he was going to play ice hockey, and he'd never skated in his life.
Oh, beautiful.
So I said, yeah, okay, and started this journey of Bryn's ice hockey, and Bryn got quite good at ice hockey. And one of my major failings is when I get involved with stuff, I really get involved. And I ended up being the president of the ice hockey club, and
Wow.
I was invited to become the manager of the Australian under-18 ice hockey team.
That's amazing.
And we were going to Mexico City for Division 3 World Championships, right? So which was incredible. And we first did a training camp for 2 weeks in Canada, in British Columbia.
Yeah.
And then got on a plane and went down to Mexico City.
Wow.
And on one of the off days, we all got on a bus and went to the Aztec pyramids just outside of Mexico City. And the thing then, I'm not sure if it still is, it could be cultural reasons why it stopped, but the thing was to climb the pyramids, right?
Yeah.
And everybody else there climbed the pyramids, but Rob stayed at the bottom because it was too hard.
Wow.
Like I knew I wouldn't be able to do that. And I think that sort of started the thought processes going that something needed to change.
So how long ago was that?
Well, that was probably 20 years ago. Yeah. And came home, and it wasn't immediate, but
that was the spark.
That was the start. And also people in the advertising industry I was working with, people older than me, but do you mean the people were very unhealthy, having to go to hospital, having triple bypass operations, and do you mean like it just wasn't
saw
good.
your future.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and really that's what it came down to. There was one morning where I just thought, if I don't change, I will die. So started doing some research online, and found that dieting was good, but part of that was exercise, and started running. Found the Couch to 5K program.
Yes, you are not the first person on this podcast to say that Couch to 5K was the thing that kept them going in those beginning days.
Yeah, totally.
To moving, more than between one pole to another.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
That's amazing.
Yeah, so I started there, and then my first 5K race, and then it's everybody's story. After that, 5K becomes 10 becomes a half becomes a marathon becomes 80K, 50 miler, 100K,
is it everyone's story,
miles, etc., etc., etc.
Is that everyone's story? I'm not sure. Sometimes yes, but even when after I did my first marathon, I can remember people saying, you'll either be someone who runs one marathon or you'll run multiple. Nobody runs two, for example.
Yeah.
You know, it's those kind of sayings. And there are other people who go, I'll never run more than 10K. It's kind of like one of those things. But it sounds like you, like with the ice hockey, once you get, you know, into whatever hobby or endeavor it is, and it becomes a part of who you are and your identity, you just fully embrace it. It's probably
well, the funny thing was, so when I started running, I said to my wife, I said, I'm going to start running, but all I'm going to do is run. I'm not going to organize anything. I'm not going to do anything. All I'm going to do is go along and run. Right?
How did that go?
And I ended up being the president of Aura. So
so there you go. That's how it went for you. Tick. I'm still kind of, my brain is still saying ice hockey and Western Australia, not to mention ice hockey and Australia. Like, you just don't think of it as necessarily being a sport where Australians would have much to do. You know, just I suppose like any winterish sport, we don't have that much going on in that area, or do we? I mean, I could be wrong in Tassie.
Doing like it was fun.
Yeah.
But we were playing Division 3 World Championships, which was really sort of Division 6, because there's Division 2A, B, and
wow.
So we were playing countries like Mexico and
Canada,
China, and but like Canada and the US and Sweden and Switzerland, they play in Division A, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we went to Canada to do our training camp, and we were situated in a place called Osoyoos, which is guessing about 100K east of Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a small town, with 3,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. And you can think of any country town in Australia. And these country towns, they have junior ice hockey teams, right? Mm-hmm. And this was Junior B League in British Columbia. But these teams for the town are massive. Like, you know, these kids are seen as idols as they walk around.
They all aspire to.
Yeah. So the first game we played was against the Osoyoos Storm, I think they were, and they beat us 20-0.
No.
That was Australia versus
Wow.
So, and that just shows you the difference in.
Should have said to them,
quality.
okay, you come and do some surfing at our place.
But it's exactly the same. To me, it'd be like the Canadian cricket team coming to play.
Yeah, exactly.
In Bunbury or something, you know.
Yeah.
They'd still get thrashed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So what did your kids and your family think when you started, you know, this change of your life, really, or adopting a new way?
I think everybody was happy.
Yeah.
Do you mean like why not? Bryn, my son, he was going for his driver's license at the time. I remember my first 5K race, and he'd driven me to the race to get time on his lunar plates, you know.
Yeah.
So he was waiting for me to finish, and I finished and sort of collapsed in front of the car, and I was still smoking, and I had a cigarette, and I remember the look on his face, going, "What are you doing?"
Even he knew that really what didn't quite work.
Correct. And that was the last cigarette I ever smoked. So.
Oh wow.
Yeah, we were like, I knew I couldn't do both. So.
Yeah. What made you go longer and longer? Is it just, as you said, it just seemed like a natural progression for you?
Yeah, it was. And you have to remember times then were different, you know. Like now in WA we've got some sort of ultra running event seemingly every 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yep.
And back then there was nothing really, you know. and Dave Kennedy, who's now the race director of WTF, Lark Hill. He organised a run called 6 Inch, and that was my introduction to ultra running, and that's 47 Ks on the Mundabiddi Trail down south. But the year that I first did it, I think there was 17 of us, and it was just totally fat ass. And sort of off we went. And now there's 300, 400 people, and we do that at the same time every year, and it's official, and everybody gets serious about it. But yeah, so it was different. So I ran that, and then it was like, okay, what am I going to do now? And I thought 100K would be good. And there wasn't anything local in terms of anything further.
Distance,
and I didn't really want to travel for it. So I thought, I'll just start my own event. So I did. So I started something called the Kep Ultra, which again in the first year we ran fat ass. I think there was, I don't know, 10 of us or something.
Wow.
Ran this 100K thing from Northam, which is 100, about 100 Ks east of Perth, and ran that, and that then became an official event. And
wow.
And we used, like it's. I used to have a lottery for it because, but people who volunteered got automatic entry into the next year. Yeah, and I had many more people volunteering than I needed because they wanted to run the race. It's like I was actually invent positions for people that you go and stand there for 10 hours, which is great. But it's been wonderful to see the whole sport just develop. So
it has. It's changed a lot, hasn't it? Like if you think
you've got no idea. Do you mean like once upon a time 100 miles used to be a long way, believe it or not?
Just like I feel a little bit cheated because I've only done 60K at the most, and I thought that was pretty. In fact, when I first did a marathon, I thought it was pretty impressive. But now and that was kind of the pinnacle. I think we even have Dee Costello come out to the start of the race and say, you're only the 1% of people in the world will ever do a marathon. But now I feel like it's maybe 10% and it's 1% that do ultras or something. Yeah. I don't know. It's just feel a bit cheated, like I said.
Yeah.
Anyway, try that hard.
Yeah. So I had to travel for my first miler, and I traveled to Queensland to run Glasshouse.
Okay. Yeah.
Which was, I think there was only 200 or 300 milers in Australia back then. Great North Walk was another, and there might have been another. Anyway, doesn't matter. Went there, did that DNF the first year, went back and finished that, and I online. I was following on. This is before Facebook, and there used to be a site called Cool Runnings. I don't know if people talk to you about that, but
I know of Cool Running. I've been running for actually a little bit longer than you, so just not as far.
Right? So that used to be huge, and people were talking about a race called Coast to Kosciuszko, and there were sort of live updates happening of that race in 2009, I guess.
Yeah.
I was just so attracted to it, to that event, and like that year there was this massive storm on the way up from Perisher, and this crew's posting up going, the runner can't see, and there's snow and there's sleet,
wow.
and everybody's going to die, and I went and crewed that a couple of years later, and because back then one of the ways that you could get an entry was I would helped to have had some experience in terms of crewing, so I went and did that. That was a fantastic experience, and I ended up running 2 Coast to Cossies, so like that was Yeah, that was big.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
We've had Amy Lamprett here.
Yeah.
She's a bit of a coast to Cozzy recently in the last couple of
Yeah.
years. I think she's been on the podcast as well. I think this last year I was away with one of her crew this weekend, hanging out, and she was saying I think there was snow this last year, this last one near the end, or I think it was really
Yeah.
cold anyway.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was a bit hairy, so it sounds like the kind of race that gives you that kind of keeps the adrenaline going.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, and you like, one of the things I love about running is the friendships and relationships that you make, and I've made so many friendships out of Coast to Cozzy, and some of the other races that I've done. So like I've crewed at Coast to Cozzy maybe 3 or 4 times.
Wow.
Just for different friends. I crewed for Sean Kessler there. And I met Mick Thwaites. Mick actually came across and ran my KEP run. So Mick's from Queensland, but I met him again at Coast to Cozzy the year after.
Yeah,
and we became friends. And I crewed him a couple of times at Coast to Cozzy.
Yeah,
and from that, the friendship became really close, and ended up crewing for him twice at Badwater, and
wow.
and 6-day race in Milwaukee, and 24-hour World Championships in Belfast, and you know what I mean, like I don't. It's
really
like
taken
it's
over
just,
your life, I think, Rob.
Well, I think it's just it's just a ridiculous journey, you know. Like you know, you just sort of start and sort of off you go. Yeah.
But you wouldn't change a bit of it?
No.
Does your race still exist? Sorry, Rob.
No. So what happened, because some of it was on road, and also, and it was on an old fire trail.
Yeah.
And you know, with fire trail, you've got roads sort of crossing them, you know, and the early years, the authorities didn't seem to mind so much, but then people sort of started to notice that 100 people were running down every year, and you know, they said that we had to have traffic management plans and everything else, and that included lots of signage and marshals and God knows what, and the cost of that was just ridiculous, and like we did it one year, but the impost on the volunteers was just so ridiculous. You know, like having volunteers out at 2 a.m. in the morning, you know, driving utes around, putting signs out, you know, and I'm talking hundreds of signs, you know, like it was ridiculous. I finished it. Sean actually started again a couple of years ago, but he started to run into the same sorts of problems. So it ran for 2 more years later. The last time last year, but it won't be happening again for the same thing, which is really unfortunate, right?
It is. Because it's hard, isn't it?
I mean, like, you know, don't get me started.
I've been since my late 20s. I've been on a running club committee here, the Launceston Running Club. We do handicap races all through winter, about 20 races a year, and we've been a road running club mostly. And yes, now a lot of that is really coming to the fore, and we're having to drop a lot of the courses that have been around since, even like the club's been around since 1948. So it's got a lot of history, and a lot of the races have been, you know, in place in the calendar usually. And we're having to drop them because they're, you know, just too dangerous or too prohibitive to put on the road. Even though we're only talking about, you know, 5 to 21s, we're not talking about ultras or anything, which is again that extra, as you said, you know, having volunteers and out there in all hours.
So I ended up seeing a race called the last annual Vol State race, and I saw that in, I don't know, 2011, 2012, and it was like another Coast to Cozzy moment, and I just thought I want to do that. And it's 300 miles, 500 k's across Tennessee, and it's run by Lazarus Lake. Yeah.
Amazing.
And so in 2018, I went and did that race, and that's all road, right? Like, yeah, you sort of you start, on the western side of Tennessee, or in Kentucky, actually, and you sort of finish on the eastern side, all on road, major highways. Do you mean?
So how do they do that? Like, the litigious nature of America.
I don't.
The reputation of that is like.
I've got no idea.
Wow,
Do you mean?
isn't it
Like,
amazing?
I've got no idea. Yeah, yeah. I think it's sort of like, don't tell anybody.
Yeah, yeah.
But
And don't get hit by a car, please.
Yeah. No, and the danger is very real.
Yeah, exactly.
But no, I guess it's down to how much risk you're willing to take yourself.
I was also part of. I was a race director for a little while for Convicts and Wenches here.
Oh, right. Yeah. That was one of Ian's runs.
Ian's, yeah. So he taught me into that. So I was a race director for 3 years before he passed away, unfortunately. But the sleepless nights of, because it's a different sort of danger. We're not talking about roads and things, but if somebody hurt themselves out there, which is a lot of these ultra runs that you do and have been involved in, that's one of the things that as a race director would keep me up at night thinking, making sure there was enough things in place that if something, God forbid, did happen, that all the things were set up that, we could get them out easily and blah, 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 which, depending on where it happened, easy is a relative term. Because they're in the middle of nowhere, basically. It's like,
totally.
It's as a participant, you don't often think about those things. You just go out there, or at least I don't when I'm a participant. I just go out there and you think you're kind of looking after yourself when you've got your aid stations and things, but you don't realize all of the other things that are going on in the background in the planning stages to make it as safe as possible.
But like I always say to guys who are running that, in the end of the day, they still need to take responsibility for their own actions. Do you mean? Like I remember, again, some years ago, but there was a 100-miler down in Patagonia. Yeah. And a guy died between 8 stations in a snowstorm. Yeah. And everybody online got stuck into the race organizers. And I sat my wife down and I said, if anything ever happens to me in a race, it's down to me. Don't go after the race director. It's me. I need to be responsible for my own actions. And that's the way I go into every race.
There's so many variables.
That's right.
That sounds like weather to me. And weather is not predictable in those, especially those kind of areas.
Especially in Patagonia. Like, what are you going to expect? Yeah.
Definitely snow, I believe. Yeah. Beautiful, but snow. Beautiful vistas. Yeah. So you've gone off and you've taken on this love of ultra running, especially trail events. By the sound of it, has been more your style, I assume. Even though you've done some road.
Oh no, I love it all.
Just all of it.
Yeah, I love. There's a lot of people who don't like road running. I love it. I like it. 500 k's in Tennessee was magic. I ran across some boa, and all on road. That was magic. I love it. Well, you don't need to think too much, rather than you're looking at your feet the whole time. You just
Yeah, it's a bit like swimming in a pool.
Exactly.
You just follow
I never thought of it that way, but you're right, it is.
So they both serve different purposes, perhaps, for you. They feed different things. You look at it in a different way.
Yeah.
What do you do? Well, what have you done in the last 20 years in your work life? So we were talking before about you being in advertising. Did you stay in advertising? What did you?
No, when the internet came around, I thought, like I saw the internet, and this is going back to 87, 88, so really, really early days.
Yep.
And I thought, sort of, this is the future. And started one of the first web development firms in Perth, and we were carrying this massive Mac up and down St George's Terrace, which is our main financial district here, and presenting to massive companies. And I'd be saying, this is something called email, and one day everybody's going to be using it.
And you were saying your laptop was a massive Mac.
That's right. Yeah. So anyway, I got into online and ended up being sort of part of a company that ended up floating, and during the and my son got to about 11, I think, and I was working 60, 70 hours a week. And I just came to a decision where money and success isn't worth this. And I took a bit of a backseat. So, but I'm still involved in online. So, my official title is online marketing strategist, and that works really well for me. Yeah.
So you put hours in each week, or do you, or you just are there as a consultant? Like, if that makes sense. So they.
No,
that makes sense.
I work about 30 hours a week.
Okay.
For quite a major health services company in Australia.
Yeah.
But I do that from home, and the hours are pretty flexible.
Yeah.
So when I look outside and go, time to go for a run, and so that's good. And as well as that, I've got some other clients who I do bits and pieces for. Yeah. Just enough manageable stuff,
Yeah.
And then I've got my coaching, which probably takes up more time than
anything
else. But I love it, so, and that's what it's become for me. It's just letting go of all of those typical business pressures that a lot of people sort of.
It sounds a lot like us, really. Like my husband and I, we had a web development business and we had an online marketing business, and now I have one major client really that I do work for in online, and a couple of others that it gets sprinkled around. But my time, I can be flexible with my time, like that as well, and work at night if I need to, so I can adventure during the day usually. I go and do other things when the sun's up. So I understand that totally. We even took 3 of our younger children away overseas for 18 months for the same reason that you just described. We were getting trapped in that cycle of working as many hours as you could because you had all the clients, and then it was bringing in lots of money and stuff, but it was not bringing in happiness, and the kids weren't seeing us a lot, so, or at least not in a quality way. So we did it in a different way than you, in that we ran away for 18 months, but it was awesome, and still is awesome now, because we learned from those things and came back.
But I look back and that's one of the best decisions I've made. Absolutely. Yeah,
that's fascinating. So tell me more about your coaching. How did that come about?
I'll go back. So I was being coached, and again, this is going way back, and now every second person you meet's a coach, and but back then there were hardly any coaches. Certainly, I didn't know of any Australian coaches. There probably were some, but anyway, I found Carl Meltzer online, and was coached by Carl, right?
Yep.
And Carl's a real man's man sort of a coach, which was which was good. And he wrote to me one day and he said, Rob, I'm going to do this FKT end to end of the Appalachian Trail. I'm going to be gone for 3 months. I'll be in touch when I'm back.
Wow.
And I thought, well, that doesn't sort of really work for me. Like, I've got Coast to Cozzy coming up.
Can you stop on the way and just, pick up the phone somewhere on the trail?
And I was, and this all happened while I think we were at Badwater. And so I was with Mick, and Mick was being coached by Martin Fryer. Mm-hmm. And Mick said, I'll have a word to Martin and see if he's got some space. And you know of Martin, right?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right. So Martin is a fabulous runner in his own right. Mm-hmm. In terms of he held the Australian 48 hours record for a long time, other than Jonas Kouros. So when you talk Australian records, it's always other than Jonas Kouros. He's run massive 6-day races.
He's run
fantastic. He was
Jonas
the
Kouros, I know that.
coach of the Australian 24-hour team. And he tends to coach sort of elite runners. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you'll find that a lot of the people on the Australian 24-hour running team have sort of been coached by Martin at one stage or another.
Yep.
So, and I had met Martin at a previous Coast to Cozzy. Mm-hmm. Mick set up the invitation, and Martin was generous enough to take on poor old me for a while, and which was great. And you know, as a coach, you have, when people get in touch, you have that sort of first discussion, interview sort of thing, And Martin said to me, he said, "What do you love about running, Rob?" And I said, "I love the excitement." I said, "I love the adrenaline. I love..."
That's why you like the Coast to Cozzy Oscos, which go most wrong.
Yeah,
weather-wise.
I love that feeling when I'm standing on the beach at Coast to Cozzy and the adrenaline's coursing through my veins. And I love the weeks leading up to it, when that excitement's building.
That's amazing.
And Martin said, "Rob, that's totally wrong."
I was going to say, that's the bit I really hate, actually. I get really anxious and no, I'm scared.
Yeah, and Martin said, that's totally
amazing.
wrong. And he said, you need to be...
have
a level of stillness. You need calm. You need to be peaceful.
Interesting.
And Martin's the first to admit he's a bit of a sort of hippie coach. And he he introduced me to meditation as part. And a number of Martin's runners have been introduced to meditation and mindfulness that way. So it was pretty simple sort of meditation back then. But it really helped me. So 3 months later, I got to stand on the beach at Coast to Cozzy, and I'm standing there, and I'm totally calm, totally peaceful, and I'm thinking, this is either going to go really, really well or really, really badly. And I had the most fantastic run. 3-hour PB. Like, it was just magic. So anyway, that introduced me to the power of meditation. And I'd sort of seen it before, where there's a West Australian guy by the name of Graham Cunningham. I don't know if you cross him, but he's run and won the Sri Chinmoy self-transcendence race in New York. So that's 5,000 Ks over 50 days around a 1 mile. No, it's 2.5 miles, I think.
I heard about it the other day. Sean was talking about it. That was the
Yeah,
first time
yeah.
I'd heard about that race as well.
Yeah, but Grahak had spoken at a ultra running function some years before that I'd attended, and Grahak's a follower of Sri Chinmoy, and I don't know. Sometimes you just meet these people, and they're just at a different level in terms of their level of peace and calm. And Grahak was one of those people. Like you could see it. You know, you can look across the room and see it in people. So between those things, I'm really a little bit ashamed for it, that I decided to investigate meditation to improve my running, right?
To improve your, sorry, I interrupted you.
To improve my running, right?
Oh, you're running. So why were you ashamed?
Because I look at it now, and it was my real discovery of meditation was for purely egotistical reasons. Yeah.
So when you say improve, do you mean faster, or was that your goal? Because we've had a lot of
because you look at that, you look at the Sri Chinmoy race in New York, right? And there's 20 people doing that for 50 days, and you look at those people, and they are not fantastic athletes, you know. Yes, they train and they run pretty well, but they run 50 days, 100 Ks a day, right? Yeah, and at Ball State, I ran 7 days, averaging 65 Ks a day, and I know how broken I was at the end of that. Yeah, yeah. So and I looked at that Sri Chinmoy race and the people running it, and I thought, whatever they have is what I want.
Yeah. So it's more of an experience. Like it's not.
No, but I wanted the ability to be able to run for 50 days, 100 Ks a day, right? And then the only thing that was the difference between them and me was that they were meditating for hours and hours a day. Yeah.
So when you say you're ashamed, as you said, because you think that's a more selfish kind of motivation.
My motivation wasn't pure, you know.
It's all sort of
because what's happened is the outcome has been an amazing transformation in my life. You know, forget running.
Yeah.
And
everywhere in your life.
Yeah. So anyway, so I started doing this meditation thing and started meditating regularly and started to realize the benefits. And I was seeing, you know, helping at events and people melting down at aid stations and quitting when there was no reason for them to quit.
Yeah.
You know, people getting really angry, suffering a lot and I just thought, if I can teach a little bit of what I know, some other people might benefit. So 3.5 years ago, I decided to run a little pilot, and I just put up a post in one of the Facebook groups, local Facebook running groups, and said, look, you know, if anybody's interested, I'm going to do some mindfulness sessions. We'll do 12 weeks, hour a week. And I just want to run as a pilot. I just want 6 people, and posted it up, and sort of half an hour later, I had 12 people wanting to do it. And
that's amazing.
So I ended up doing 2 different sessions of 6 people each.
That's awesome.
And so we did that, and at the end of the sessions, one of the people doing that came over and said, "Hey, would you coach me?" And I'd never really thought about coaching. I thought, yeah, okay, so yeah, we'll do that. And it was and the people who'd done the 12 weeks reported that they'd had real benefit from it. And then Sean with Ultra Series contacted me about 4 months later and said, I want to start this sort of panel of coaches up with Ultra Series.
Yeah.
Do you want to be part of it? And I said, yeah. Well, I thought about it, and I said, yeah, look, I will, but I need to focus it on the mindset stuff.
Yeah.
You know, if it's about me writing running plans, you know, if that's all I'm doing, I'm not interested. And Sean said, no, you do what you want. So started 2.5 years ago, 2 people. And yeah, that's grown to, you know, like I've got 35 people as part of the community now, sort of active people that I'm coaching, not just from the mindset perspective, because what happens, people go on breaks or whatever, and continue with the mindset stuff. But in terms of the physical coaching, there's probably about 20 now, which, to be honest, is as much as I can handle.
Yeah, as individuals, if you're giving them individual
help. Yeah, and it's been the most beautiful thing.
Rewarding.
It is so rewarding in terms of and as well as the run coaching, I do similar to what we're doing now is we do a weekly Zoom meeting where we talk mindset stuff.
Yeah.
And for example, after a race, everybody will debrief on their race experience. Yeah. And what I found is that we've created this most amazing community of supportive people, you know, and I don't think there's anybody that there are similar sort of coaching experiences, because people don't do that, right? People get coached by the coach, and then they go and run.
It's,
you know,
the competitive
they might get
too,
together at a park run every now and again, but that's about it, right? There's no, you know, other than the T-shirt they're wearing that says XYZ coach, there's no real community. But we've got this massive thing where everybody shows up. Well, not everybody, but you know, on a regular basis, people show up and communicate online. So like that's been magic. And what I've loved about it is, you know, like I used to be really analytical about business, and if I was going to do something, I'd write a massive business plan, and that's the plan, and that's year 1, and that's year 2, and that's year 3.
Projections.
And for this, I just thought I'm just going to let it be totally organic. You know, whatever happens, happens. Which has been wonderful, because I've been able to switch stuff in and out as needed. But a really integral part, as you probably realize, is the meditation side of things. So when people join me, that we do a 13-week, what I call the core sessions, and that's an hour a week, and then after that they join the general community. But during those core sessions, I teach 5 meditation techniques, and then meditation becomes a really important part of the ongoing. And I mean, and people sort of adapt it differently. You know, there are some people who may meditate 10 minutes every now and again. But then I've got some core people who are meditating an hour every single day, going to meditation retreats, studying at the Buddhist Open University. I mean, like it's become ridiculous. So, well, not ridiculous. It's become really
amazing. Yeah.
And for me, when you talk mindfulness and meditation, you can sort of do that on a pretty sort of superficial sort of level, and I guess that's where I started as well. But what I've come to realize over time is that you really need to adopt some of the spiritual teachings as well. And just doing meditation might give you 10%, and just looking at the spiritual sort of teachings gives you another 10%. But when you combine it, that's when the magic happens. Like that's when you get 100%.
More than 20%.
You get
More than
absolutely you get 100%. So what was happening was at these Zoom sessions, I was wanting to talk on more spiritual subjects and introduce them, but I didn't want to come across as an evangelist, and like I don't want to do that. And in the end, we had a sort of a community meeting, and I said to the guys, I said, look, I'm having this issue where if sometimes I want to talk about something, but I'm going, oh, this is going to freak people out, and everybody was really good, and everybody just said, Rob, we're all adults, post what you want, talk about what you want, and we can figure out whether we accept it or not. So that was terrific. So what I decided to do was introduce one additional Zoom session a week, which is what we call our meditation focus session. And during that, we look at, we do group meditation, like a 45-minute meditation every couple of weeks. During the other weeks, we might listen to some sort of a Dharma talk, or all sorts of stuff. But we rarely talk running during that. And what's come out of all of that is and not everybody goes to that, right? So I've said, like, there's a community of about 35. It's probably about a dozen who sort of come along to that meditation focus stuff regularly, and that's great, and there's people there, who I'll talk to, and they'll say, Rob, like the difference this has made to my life. Like, I don't care about the running stuff anymore. Do you mean? It's just it's and it's been magic. Like, it's been great. And I'm in sort of the lucky situation now where I don't need to look for new people. And also, for a while, I was sort of getting people who thought by doing the course sessions for 13 weeks that they'd have all the answers. And it was like a quick fix. I'll go and do mindset with Rob, and then I'm a better runner. And now, if people want to sort of take part, and like I've sort of got the doors closed, but if somebody's really, really interested, I'll have a chat to them, and it almost becomes like an interview situation, and it's, I say to these people, like, it's what we're doing is, it's a 30-year journey, like it's not something that you're going to get in 12 weeks, it, and in terms of the real benefits, it's 2 years from now.
A lot of, like, as you know, I've done a little bit of the mindfulness training in the last little bit, which is what I've done a John Kabat-Zinn stress based thingy, and had done some spiritual stuff over the years as well. But the big thing that I've taken away from a lot of that is, to what you were just talking about, it is a journey. It is not a journey where the destination is there's no destination, like, you don't reach the end of it. And that's why it's called practice as well. Like, it's a practice. It's not that you practice it and then become proficient in it. It's just a practice that you do forever. It's almost like playing with the English language with that word, was it diet or something? Instead, you should change your lifestyle, or, you've been using the word mindset as well. And I think that's where people think it, as you said, it's a quick fix. I'll come in and I'll work out what it is that's going on with my head when I work with Rob, and then that'll be done. So I'll be able to just get on with my running and follow my running training. Like, it's like going on a diet.
When I started, I actually used to say to people, all you need to do is meditate for 10 minutes a day, right? But what I found is that it's those people who meditate for an hour a day, right, who get the real benefits. That's right, and you see it. You see it. You see the difference in them. And like, I don't want to scare anybody off. And if you want to do 10 minutes of, meditation from guided meditations that you download on an app. Terrific. And it's better doing that than nothing. But the more you do, and there's no risk of injury from meditating.
No, that's a good point. For me, I've been exploring being mindful in movement as well, and mostly because I understand and I agree with everything that you've said, but because I still got my marketing head on to a degree, and I want to make the biggest impact ultimately in the work that I choose to do in my life going forward, and I want to explore some of these things that you're talking about. When I combine all of that, and probably because I'm a bit lazy, I'm not sure, I'm trying to put together easy ways for people to be more mindful, because I think that's the first sort of stepping stone, and that is slowing down, because of the world that we live in right now is so crazy. You and I both come from backgrounds where we've been involved in technology in sort of leading edge ways in some ways, and as a result you've got to be on top of the technology, and the technology is always there and it's always trying to get your attention, and we're aware of it. Everyone else, like a lot of other people in the community, are passively doing it. Like, I know that I'm doing it way too much, and I know that so many other people in the community are doing it like all the time. Their lack of, we're never alone with our own thoughts or our own, you know exactly what I'm saying. So when we go running though, or I guess other activities as well, but I pick on running because it's my passion, I feel like it has an opportunity for us to take those moments back from the craziness that is the modern world. And if you do it in a focused way with some mindfulness involved too, where you're focusing on your breath or your surroundings, or so it's just a very surface level, as you said before, of what you've been talking about, it's a stepping stone and it gives you some relief. And I did some study into neuroscience, and they talked about what's going on in your brain when you're running, especially when we sort of hit some of those levels where we're playing with that with our mind, and it looks exactly like meditation. Like, so that's physical science proof that running is and can be used in that way as well. And I think, though, if, as you said, if you use it in conjunction, I should say, with deliberate meditation, then your body will be even more adapt to being more mindful and more in that. Does that make sense?
No, totally. I totally hear what you're saying. So with what I teach techniques that people can use. They can meditate while running. So
without running into anything or closing their eyes.
But I remember years ago, like before I started the coaching and everything, but I was starting to get a little bit deeper into my meditation. I posted on Facebook and I said something like, I've been on this wonderful run, and I tried to be, I was being really mindful during the run, and it was a fantastic experience. And Martin Fryer replied and said, Rob, one day it will just be. And I looked at him, what the hell is he on about? One day it will just be. Do you know? It's like some sort of kung fu master giving you.
That's right. A bit like that. What is it? Where he was painting on, painting off. What's that movie?
That's right. And I didn't get it. I didn't understand. But it's only now, well, in the last few years, and some of the guys that meditate significantly during the week, when they're reporting back on running to 100 milers, those sorts of events. And I say to them, did you bring in the meditation during the run, etc.? And they say, no, I don't need to do that anymore because I just am. Right. So because what happens is, if you meditate for long enough, regularly enough, you will just become more mindful in everyday life, and that will become your new state. So you don't need to think about being mindful, because that's just the new you.
It's like diet versus lifestyle. So, you know, making healthy choices just becomes what you do versus sticking to some diet that says you can't do certain things or whatever. Yeah, you choose that all the time. Yeah. I love that. That's awesome. It's so cool. I remember when I was first trying to explore a lot of this a few years ago, I was like, nobody's talking about this. There's, you know, the odd book here and there, you know, about running and being more mindful. And
well, there's
very
little
now, but it's not. Yeah, it's still at the beginning.
There's very little, and it's only just a few months ago I discovered a book called The Competitive Buddha by a guy named Jerry Lynch, who's worked with major sporting teams in the States, like NBA basketball teams and the like. Because I always thought, because like the main Buddhist concepts, like if you know, and I don't sort of look at Buddhism for other people necessarily as a religious thing. Like it's, you know, it's secular, right? Or it can be if that's what you want it to be. And I always look at the main teachings, and this is what I talk about when we have our sessions, in terms of how some of those teachings relate to running, right? Because running is just a metaphor for life, I reckon.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? I totally agree.
And what am I trying to say?
So some of the teachings that you get from Buddha that you share in your
So I thought, like, there's a correlation, right? Like you can write the book, right? And you can say, okay, Buddha's teaching impermanence. This is how impermanence relates to running. Buddha's teaching of karma. This is how karma relates to running, right? And I thought, if I was clever enough, I would write that book, right? But I'm not clever enough.
You are so. I'm sorry.
No, I'm not. Well, sorry. I might be clever enough, but my level of understanding of Buddhism isn't deep enough for me to feel comfortable writing that. I mean, like I would hate to write something like that, and for my teachers to read it and go, that's all rubbish. But
you could almost say this is me at the moment, because we're all a work in progress, as we've already talked about, which is a place we're never going to get to the completed thing. So you may as well just enjoy the process.
Yeah. But anyway, Jerry Lynch has basically written the book, not about running
the competitive
per se, but in terms of sports, and so that's a really good introduction. And the other one that, like, if you want to read, and you might have read already, is Kai Bretz's book Turning Right, you know, which like Kai.
I've heard of it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah. So Kai also was coached by Martin Fryer and comes from that. And Kai is absolutely, you know, he would be in the top couple of 24-hour runners in Australia at the moment.
Oh, wow.
And
amazing.
And we've had a really good connection. He came and did one of the super group sessions for us. And again, I said to Kai, you know, and it wasn't like we'd been talking and exploring this together with totally different paths, but if you look at it, it's the same, right?
Wow.
And so we've got the Delirious 200 miler over here next week, and Kai's coming across from Victoria to run it.
Wow.
And 4 or 5 months ago, Kai shot me a message and said, are there any of the Mind Focus running guys interested in crewing for me, right? And that's it. And that's it, right? Because he wants people who are aligned.
Of course.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where the magic happens too with the guys who do Mind Focus running. People will go and enter an event, but if they've got a pacer or a crew who are also part of Mind Focus running, it just gels. You know, like everybody knows what everybody's doing, and it just works.
I love it. Oh, I just love it. I'm going to put all the links to all of those things in your show notes will just be full of links right now. No actual writing, just links to all these cool things. But before we wrap up, because I've got another West Australian, actually, sorry, not West Australian, South Australian, but another person from Sean to talk to next. Michelle Hanlon, do you know?
Oh, no, Michelle. Yeah.
Yep. So I've got speaking to Michelle next afternoon. So I'm a bit excited about all of these awesome people that I'm going to talk to. Very excited to talk to you, though. Before we wrap up, I did want to ask a couple more personal questions about your running in particular, just the sort of things that I ask everyone. Things like, when did you first call yourself a runner? Can you remember? Was it when you did the 5K or before that or after that?
Oh, look, it's too long ago, but I just worry. Yeah, I just worry about it, about that definition. Do you mean like to somebody, like for me, if somebody goes out and runs, they're a runner, right? Like there is absolutely no question. And at the end of the day, what does it matter? Do you mean?
But, I mean, I agree, but it's more about an individual's. And so often I've had people I know who've been running for, 40 years, and I've asked that question. They're like, actually, I don't call myself a runner. I don't think of myself as a runner or whatever. I think of myself as someone who just wants to be healthy, and I like to move, and running's what I choose to do at the moment. If that makes sense. So it's quite an individual thing, identity-wise. But it always surprises me when people say they don't think that they're a runner and they might have been running, even if they'd only been running for a couple of years. I don't think it matters to me that I see them as a runner, which is kind of interesting too.
But also, like, I think for a lot of people, running defines them. And, do you mean? And I think if you can let go of that ego part of it, I think it's a really good thing to me. And like you see it, all the people online, all they can post about is the photos of what they ran yesterday, and they are the runner. That is them.
Yeah. And that's where, well, you see it in the news with, elite sportsmen, and they can't do their sport anymore, and the wheels fall off their life. That's where what you're doing with the mindfulness stuff, the mind-focused running. It's taking the focus off the running as the thing is who you are, but instead, the work that you're doing.
I've got a friend who ran Delirious last year and won. And at the event, he's a meditator. And he came up to me afterwards and said, that's it. I'm not running it. I'm not running again.
Wow.
And he said, of everybody, you will understand. I said, no, totally, I understand.
Yeah.
And he said, I've got other things to do, and I just thought, fantastic. And just in the last week, he's reached out through. He's never been on social media in his life, I don't think. But all of a sudden, he sort of popped up on social media 12 months later, and he's living at Siem Reap, which is just outside of Angkor Wat in Cambodia.
I've been there.
So he's living there, and he's basically said, I'm smoking, eating, and dancing. Do you know, I love it. Do you know, it's
he's a living.
For me, that's what it is. Don't let running define you. There's other stuff.
Yeah, you can just be part of it if you choose. I love that. It's about being true to yourself a little bit, like the meditation and the mindfulness. Nobody even hears their own thoughts anymore, as we were saying before. So they're not in touch with who they are or what it is that is calling them at the moment. Being a bit spiritual now, but so I love that. Shivers down my spine. It seems like a silly question to ask you now, but I have to ask: how long do you think you'll run for? How long do you think running will be in your life? But what do you think?
So when I was running Ball State across Tennessee, running through this town called Manchester, and I was with somebody else, and the other runner said, Laz has another event in this town, and it's called a race for the ages, right? And the concept is that you get the number of hours of your age to run, right? So if you're 60, you get 60 hours, right?
Nice.
Right. If you're 70, you get 70 hours, right? And everybody 40 and under gets 40 hours. Right?
Okay.
Anyway, this thing is massive, right? And people fly in from all over the states into Manchester to go and run their hours around this park. And there's 90-year-olds, right?
That's amazing.
So anyway, I do a fat ass race for the ages with Laz's Blessing along the coast here at Hillary's. We do that first weekend in June.
Yep.
So yeah, my goal is to still be doing that when I'm 95.
When we started our big travels away, my oldest daughter was working in the mines and living in Perth, and we came and stayed for 6 weeks right near Hillary's. So when I saw the Hillary's front yard, I came and was like, oh, I know that. I was there for a while. So I know what you're talking about. It's always nice when you know you can get a picture in your head of a place. Yeah. All right. I love that. I love that concept too. That's really cool. Even on this podcast was the first time I'd heard about the backyard and front yard ultras too.
Okay.
I went, oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like, I'll have to get out there and do it. Actually, the podcast is just helping me stay motivated, actually. Irrelevant of anyone else's motivation.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah.
Maybe you find your coaching's the same. It helps you stay motivated. So on that, what does motivate you to keep running? Because you're doing these longer distances. Running's a part of your life quite a bit, by the sound of it. What motivates you?
Look, I've just had the most amazing experiences running. To me, like cultural experiences, and I just want that journey to continue. And in terms of events, I run so few events these days. Like this year, I've got a friend and I are running the Pilgrim Trail, which is Perth to a monastery at 180 k's, and we're doing that out and back. So we're doing that at Easter as a journey run, and then I'm doing a run for the ages in June, and then doing Tour de Mont Blanc as a hike with my son in September. So like there's all of that. I haven't paid race fees to anybody, right? And like I might, so at the end of the year I might do 6-inch, and pay Dave Kennedy $50 or whatever he charges me. But that's it. Like I'm not into events, and I get other people are, and like Margaret River Ultra is a big event here, run by Rapid Ascent, who also have these, Larapinta and these other big events. Yeah. And last year I had quite a number of the guys I coach went and ran that. And I sat at the finish line. I started to get nervous. Like there's so many people and there's music going and food outlets, and I'm thinking, oh, this isn't me,
Too many people, too social, too much commerce.
Totally.
It's taking away from the meditation quite quickly. No, I totally understand. Of course, for me to ask some people, what they've got coming up, what motivates them, events and stuff. You just rolled off a couple, which were like for some people once in a lifetime type of distances that they would do. So it's interesting, I think. What your new norm is, or what norm, your norm in your life is, and around the people that you hang out with.
Yeah, like I love it when somebody asks me, like, is that shop within walking distance? And I'll define walking distance, like, so for me, anything within 500k.
Well, yeah, and then there's those people where you say, oh, I did a marathon on the weekend, and they say, oh, that's about 5 kilometers, isn't it? And you're like, no. It's a little bit further than 5 kilometers. Yeah, it's all in our own reality, isn't it?
Yeah.
Again, it would seem like a silly question, but how do you think running has improved your life? Like if you hadn't started running, what's that opened up? Just
if I wasn't running, I'd be dead.
Perfect.
Simple. Like I would be. I know it. I would have had a heart attack and I'd be gone.
And you wouldn't have explored this meditation side either, would you?
No. No.
So that says another whole.
And I was talking to the guys about it just last week. In 2008, after running my first ultra, I decided that I was going to be a triathlete, and I spent $4,000 on a carbon fiber bike, and then 3 months in, I punctured the frame, which meant I couldn't ride for 6 months. While I was going through the warranty issues and stuff. And that's when I sort of turned to ultra running, and ultra running became a thing. And when I got the new bike, I sold that. So it's interesting how life happens. Like I could be, a triathlete at the moment. Who knows?
You'd probably find that white line in the pool quite meditative.
Yeah.
That was something I was going to do too. That is another one of those progression things, I think, sometimes, like a lot of runners, think about taking on a triathlon or two at some point.
Yeah, and some come back and some don't.
Yeah, exactly. Turn away.
It's like that. Totally.
So funny. All right. Rather, I don't want to go through all of my normal questions because you don't feel like a normal interviewee, because you're full of such wisdom and Anyway, I've loved what we have shared, and I think that we could go on actually for another few hours, and maybe I will reach out to you soon and we can have a more focused conversation around some of these topics, because I think it would really help people if you're up for it.
Sure.
And you agreed there on public. Got a yes, so that's good. Is there, before we wrap up though, in a minute I'll ask you for just some beginner runner tips, but before I do, is there anything about running that in particular, or running and running mindset, that you wanted to share before we wrap up?
Look, I think just knowing that the two have to totally coexist. And I was talking to somebody about it yesterday. And with the people I coach, most of the people are ultra runners already. I've got a couple of people sort of moving up to that. But people starting out in running, look, I got quite involved with the Couch to 5K community way back, and I don't know what the percentages are, but I would guess out of every 100 people who would start Couch to 5K, there would be maybe 2 who are still running 6 months later. Like the drop-off rate is so high, and so this mindset stuff that we've been talking about applies equally to people starting out. Then your really experienced ultra runners. Like I'm coaching one young guy at the moment who comes from an elite mountain biking background, but when he started with me, he'd only been running for 3 months. And he's a very good runner. 21 years old, but what I love is he's just soaking in all of this stuff, the meditation, all the mindset stuff.
Wow.
And I'm just, I hope he doesn't listen to this, but I just love the fact that he's getting that at that really early stage, and he's getting it. And it's going to be such a massive thing as part of his running from here on. Whatever he does, he's always going to have that. And it's not going to be like that he struggles for 10, 15 years with mental issues in terms of running, and then decides, okay, I better find a solution, which is what most people do. He's got it right from the start. And I think everybody starting running has got that opportunity. Combine the two, and it's magic.
It's a tool for every element, every area of your life as well. As you said before, once you started it, it wasn't just that it helped with running, it helped every part of your life.
Totally. And the satisfaction that I get out of the coaching that I do, yes, I'm satisfied seeing the wonderful stuff that people are doing running, but the feedback I get from people in terms of improving their life experiences are far, far, far more valuable. Like, it's huge.
I love it. All right. Before we wrap up, what would you say to someone who came to you and said, Rob, I want to start running? What are your tips for beginner runners?
Well, I think that there's obviously the one I've just talked about.
Yeah.
So combine the two, right?
Yeah.
But the other one is, so and I touch on this with my athletes all of the time, and I coach like a couple of the guys are very elite runners, you know, and like Australian Championship sort of level runners, and all of those guys I talk about letting go of competitiveness, you know.
Interesting.
And that's for beginning runners, that's I think if you're going to enjoy running and keep running, you need to let that go, you know, because what will start happening, you'll start running and you'll get down to park run, and all of a sudden you feel you need to run a 30-minute 5K, and then that has to become a 25-minute 5K, you know, and you're battling every week, and you're not enjoying it. It's such a waste of effort, you know. Like I remember my first 5K race I did was the New Year's Eve run here in Perth, held by the Marathon Club. And at the same race where I finished with the cigarette. I remember being at the start line and looking around at all of these runners. And I was in my mid-40s at the time, and there was a woman there who would have been in her late 60s. And I looked around and I thought, at least there's one person I can beat here.
Guess what?
About two Ks in, there she went straight past me, right?
Watch those 60-year-old women, I tell you.
So you know, just let go of the competitiveness. You know, just go and do it, and just know. And it's a long-term journey. You know, that's what it's about. You know, it's not about tomorrow or next week. It's, you want to be doing this stuff in 5 years' time.
It's about having that tool, putting that tool in the back pocket for the rest of your life.
Totally. Yeah. Cool.
I love that. When I was at high school, I was track and field champion, and in King Island District High School. And so I thought I was pretty fast, and I was quite fast. But then I went to school in Victoria to go to year 11 and 12. And you know it's happening, what's coming up. I went, yes, of course I'll go in all the athletic things. And I was just, you know, middle of the pack. I was like devastated because I used to win by miles. So anyway, I know that feeling. So it was very humbling at the time.
Yeah.
I think I kind of gave up running for about 5 years after that.
Yeah. There's a great quote by Sri Chinmoy, and he says, "Peace begins when expectations end." And like I think that's wonderful. You know, it's
I love it. Anyway, we could talk for hours, like I said.
Rob, we could.
It has been amazing. Don't jump off straight away because I'll also say goodbye to you off the recording. But it has been amazing, and I think I will definitely get you back on because I know there's lots I want to talk about, even if nobody else wants to. But I'm sure they do.
But that's it. It's like that, isn't it?
It's all for me. I've often said this is my therapy as well. So it's good. So again, thank you so much. You've shared so much wisdom. I am sure that everyone, not just me, will have got lots of stuff out of it. So thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Michelle. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. I'd love to talk to you about your running journey. So send me a message on Facebook or on the website and let's do it. For a bunch of resources on mindful running that will help you get and stay mentally and physically fit, head over to the website fitmindfitbody.co and I'll see you there. Plus, I'll be back here in your podcast player a few times a week. Hit subscribe now so that you don't miss an episode. And before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you'd leave a review. It'll help more people to find the podcast and get inspired to start running. I'll see you soon. Bye.